Hi friends, Krista here. Thank you so much for stopping by Books and Jams. I am so excited today to be doing a try a chapter tag. I have talked about try a chapters recently as a way to bust out of a slump. And so today I'm going to be choosing 5 Book of the Month books that have been on my shelves for quite a while. So I'm going to read the first chapter of 5 of them, and then whichever one I like the best, I'm going to add to my June TBR. So I'm really excited to share that with you. But before I get into the try a chapter part of this, I would like to talk to you for just a minute about Book of the Month because they are once again sponsoring this video. I am a huge fan of Book of the Month. I have quite a few Book of the Month books on my shelves because I have been a subscriber of this service for quite a while. For those who are unaware, Book of the Month is a subscription service where you get this fun little blue box at your doorstep every month. The nice part of it is that you are choosing the book that's coming your way. Book of the Month has a team of people that vets a whole ton of new releases and early releases even sometimes, debut authors. They do the hard work of searching through all of these great books, and they give you a selection of 5 to 7 books, and you get to pick which one you want, which I love. If you don't see anything that sparks your interest that month, you also have the wonderful ability to skip a month and not be charged for that month, which is also fantastic. I have used that skip every once in a while, but usually they do such a great job of picking through books and having such a great variety of genres that I always can find something. This month for June, they have 6 main choices of what you can pick. I have 5 of them here to show you. One of them, I think, either had too many people order it right away or it's coming a little later, and it's actually the one that I'm going to pick, so I'll tell you about it. But these are the other choices for the month, so let me go through these real quick and tell you what your options are. I love the variety. The first one is a thriller, Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. As my friend Audrey likes to say, it's dark and messed up people doing dark and messed up things. Another thriller this month is The Lies I Tell by Julie Clark. In this one, The Lies I Tell, we follow a con artist who just kind of erases herself to become whoever you need her to be. There's another woman involved. It's a domestic thriller, and they have preconceived notions about the other person, but then those notions get destroyed in some way. We have a literary fiction, which also sounds a little bit historical, Women of Light by Kelly Fajardo Anstine. This one takes place in the 1930s in the American West, and we follow 3 generations of women. It does kind of sound up my alley. A contemporary is The Lifestyle by Taylor Hahn. This one would not be my pick because I believe this is about swinging lifestyle. Not exactly my cup of tea, but for others, it might be their choice. And then we have a fantasy, which does sound very cool. This is The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. In this one, there is a dangerous quest, some dark magic, some wishes that can be granted. So this is going to be in a fantastical world. Also sounds very intriguing. The 6th option for June is actually the one that I really want. It's The Wedding Dress Sewing Circle by Jennifer Ryan. And this one is a World War II historical fiction following a group of women, and I'm very intrigued by that one. If it's your first time signing up for Book of the Month, you can get your first box for just $9.99. The link will be down in the description below. You're getting brand new hardcover, new releases for such a great deal with Book of the Month. I'm so thankful to Book of the Month for once again sponsoring this video. I really hope that you go check them out. All the information will be in the description box below. If you're already a member, which one of these are you picking this month? If you're not a member, which one stands out to you the most as something that you'd be interested in? I would love to hear that in the comments below. So I have 5 Book of the Month books here that are on my shelves. One of my goals this year is to read 12 of them, and I have not been doing very well with that goal so far. So I'd like to add one of these to my June TBR, and I'm going to read the first chapter of each of them to see which one appeals to me the most. So this is probably the newest one, Once There Were Wolves. This one I got in August of 2021. This is by Charlotte McConaughey. I have a YA fantasy, The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu. I have read other books by her, but this one I am not familiar with. I do know that it has something to do with music, possibly Mozart's sister or something along those lines. Yeah, I am the sister, the other Mozart, and her story is mine. March 2020 is when I got that one. That cover is stunning. So I'll check out the first chapter of that. I have The Removed by Brandon Hobson. And this one I got in January of 2021. So not so long ago. Well, over a year. Song of the Crimson Flower is from November of 2019. So here we go, getting into the older ones. This is a fantasy, and again with a gorgeous cover, but I know nothing about it really. And then the oldest book of the month book on my shelves. I particularly wanted to do this one because I've had it for so long. And this one I got in February of 2017, Perfect Little World by Kevin Wilson. So I'm going to read the first chapter and the summaries of these. And then I'm going to rank them from least wanting to read it to the most wanting to read it. And whichever one I want to read the most, I'm going to add to my June TBR. Let's see if you can guess right now. Before I read any, write it on a piece of paper, put it in the comments, and then come back and see if you guessed correctly which one is going to be my favorite. You might know if you've read some of these, if you know my taste in books. We'll see. I'm going to start with Perfect Little World, and then we'll work our way down the stack. All right, here we go. Okay, that was a long chapter. It was 25 pages for a prologue and chapter 1. In chapter 1, we meet Isabel, who has just graduated from high school and tells her art teacher that she's pregnant with their child. So right off the bat, not a scenario that I love. Throughout chapter 1, we learn that he has a lot of mental health issues. Nothing is labeled, but he has these manic episodes where he just loses his cool completely, throws things, smashes things, and then immediately kind of regrets it and cleans up, and he's a mess. He's a mess. And he's also incredibly wealthy, like trust fund baby, but he's an art teacher in the school. Isabel, is very insecure in a lot of ways, incredibly smart. She knew she was on track to be the valedictorian, but never wanted to give the speech. So she convinced this art teacher to give her a very low grade so that she would not win valedictorian. So we just kind of get a glimpse into her life because she's going to be the main character throughout the story. But in the prologue, we kind of jump forward in time. We are in this room with 19 people, 9 couples, and Isabel. And they are ending this experiment that they were all a part of for 5 years, where they live in kind of this utopian little community where family doesn't really exist. They are all one family. So each of these couples has a child, and Isabel has her child, and they live together without a family unit. They all kind of live together. And so all the parents parent all the kids, and the kids don't know which one of the parents are their parents. And so we know it's ending because Isabel gets brought to a room and her son gets brought to her, and she is allowed to tell him that she's his mother, and they hug, and then that's kind of the end of the prologue. So we haven't at all touched on yet how that whole thing is going to come about. So there's a doctor who's going to be a main character, Dr. Grind, who he's a child psychologist, spent his life studying family. With the help of an eccentric billionaire, he has the chance to create a perfect little world to study what would happen when 10 children are raised collectively without knowing who their biological parents are. He calls it the Infinite Family Project. And he's going to invite Izzy and her son to join. So I'm very intrigued by that. I think Izzy is an interesting character. I can see her desire for connection, but also for independence. She's very smart. So it'll be interesting. She also has no desire for traditional things. She really had no intention of going to college. She doesn't want to be loved. She sees that as weakness in a way. But she is already greatly attached to her baby. And no matter what anyone is going to tell her, she is determined to have this baby. It's very, very early in her pregnancy. Yeah, so I'm very intrigued. I wish the chapters were a little shorter, and I wish we got a little more into the nitty-gritty of what's going to happen, but it just kind of introduced us to one of the characters. So we'll see where that lands in the midst of all the others. But next I'm going to pick up this fantasy, Song of the Crimson Flower. It says, only love can break the spell. I think this is some kind of retelling. After cruelly rejecting Bao, the poor physician's assistant who loves her, Lan, a wealthy nobleman's daughter, regrets her actions. So when she finds his prized flute floating in his boat near her house, she takes it into her care, not knowing that his soul has been trapped inside of it by an evil witch who cursed Bao, telling him that only love will set him free. Though Bao now despises her, Lan vows to make amends and help break the spell. Interesting. So this is going to have music. Oh, I didn't notice that this part of the dragonfly is actually a flute. I didn't know that music was going to be a part of this. Usually that is a bonus, a buzzword for me. I love when music is a part of books. Let's see the beginning of this. Okay, so we have a list of characters. That means there's going to be a lot of characters. Wow, it's 2 pages, that list of characters. Yikes, for such a little book. Okay, it's just going to be 7 pages. So let me read the first chapter of this one, and I'll see where my interest level is as compared to Pretty Little World, Perfect Little World. Okay, that one was much shorter. It's definitely YA, which I'm not sure I knew that it was YA. We have just met Lan, who is being courted by Tam, this boy named Tam, who is very wealthy, but Tam has 3 times refused the date given to them by the fortune teller that would be a good date for them to marry, and he said no to all 3. He had his reasons. It's kind of being set up as Lan has all these expectations and hopes for what's coming in her future, getting married to Tam and having servants and living a happy adventure of marriage. And it's all being set up that that's not going to happen whatsoever. I'm not impressed by Tam. He doesn't say anything. He just plays this music on the flute, but reading the description, I'm wondering if the flute is Bao's flute already and his soul is what's making the flute sound so beautiful, and that has nothing to actually do with Tam. I'm intrigued. I do like that the Asian influence for sure. The author, Julie Dao, is a Vietnamese American, so I have a feeling it's going to have a lot of that Asian influence, which I think is going to be very cool. I'm intrigued, but I think I'm a little more intrigued by this one at this point. So I will put this one below that one. I will rank it below. I would still be interested in finishing it, just maybe not next. So the next one I'm going to read is The Removed by Brandon Hobson. Let's see how many pages the first chapter of this is. I can tell already the font is really big in here. I don't know if this is a YA as well. So there is a prologue and a kind of a first chapter, and it goes up to page 20. But let's see what this one is about a little bit. In the 15 years since their teenage son Ray Ray was killed in a police shooting, the Ichota family has been suspended in private grief. The mother, Maria, increasingly struggles to manage the onset of Alzheimer's in her husband Ernest. Their adult daughter, Sonia, leads a life of solitude punctuated only by spells of dizzying romantic obsession, and their remaining son, Edgar, fled home a long time ago, turning to drugs to mute his feelings of alienation. Okay, I'm just going to skip down to the bottom. Drawing deeply on Cherokee folklore, The Removed seamlessly blends the real and the spiritual to excavate the deep reverberations of trauma, a meditation on family, grief, home, and the power of stories on both a personal and ancestral level. Interesting. So this is going to have some indigenous influence for sure. Cherokee folklore. That's pretty cool. Brandon Hobson. Oh yeah, he is an enrolled citizen of the Cherokee Nation tribe of Oklahoma. So it is in Own Voices, which is pretty cool. So let me take a look at the first little bit of this one. Okay, I just read the first chapter of this one. It was like 20 pages, I think. But the font is pretty big. There was a prologue as well that introduces us to Ray Ray Ichota, who is the teenage boy who on September 6th was at the mall, got into an altercation with 2 other boys, and a gunshot was fired. The policeman, the first policeman that was there, ended up shooting Ray Ray, who was the Indian kid, and the other 2 were white kids. He never ended up, he was put on probation for a little while, like desk job, administrative stuff, but never ended up having any kind of consequences for that action. In chapter 1, we actually jump ahead 15 years later, and it's from the mother's perspective, Maria, and she is just trying to hold her family together. Her husband has beginning stages of Alzheimer's, starting to be forgetful, finding himself in different parts of the house and not remembering why he got there, waking up in the middle of the night with strange dreams, and just starting to have a little bit of difficulties because of his Alzheimer. Then we have the sister, Sophia, who's the oldest of the 3 kids. She lives nearby, is just kind of dating. She has a little bit of social anxiety, it seems like. Comes over more often, though, now that her dad is starting to be ill and helping out her mom, which is nice. And then we meet the youngest son, Edgar, who is struggling with drug addiction, living with his girlfriend. They tried to do an intervention and he said he was going to go get help, but he never did. He steals money. His life is kind of going off the rails. All of these people are just greatly affected by this grief of this event that happened 15 years earlier. And they never really received any kind of closure or resolution from it, which is how grief is for a lot of people. So it looks like we're going to have a couple different perspectives as the book goes on and just kind of see how this family handles grief, which is something that I really love to read about. Also coming from that Cherokee folklore aspect, I did see a tiny bit of that. The mother has dreams where her son who was shot, Ray, is a bird. So that theme I think is going to come through a couple different times. Yeah, there's just a little bit of that in the first chapter. We didn't get too much into that aspect of it. One other thing that was in the first chapter is that they have agreed to take on a teenage foster son, a foster boy who just needs, he's a Cherokee as well. And they want to place him with another Cherokee family and they're the only ones available or something, but they've never done this before. So I'm not sure how that will fare for them, but yeah, I'm intrigued. I didn't feel like it had a very propulsive plot. It feels like it's going to be a little more introspective and slower paced. So of the 3 that I've started so far, I think this is the bottom. I think it's something that I'm very interested in, but I think it's going to be pretty slow paced. And in the summertime, it's not really what I'm looking for. I just need something that's a little bit more faster paced and moves quickly. So as of right now, it's still Perfect Little World, and then Song of the Crimson Flower, and then The Removed would be the 3rd one. So let's move on to The Kingdom of Back, going into another fantasy. This is by Marie Lu. Mozart's sister, born with a gift for music, Nannerl Mozart, has just one wish: to be remembered forever. But even as she delights audiences with her masterful playing, she has little hope she'll ever become the acclaimed composer she longs to be. She is a young woman in 18th century Europe, and that means composing is forbidden to her. She will perform only until she reaches a marriageable age. Her tyrannical father has made that much very clear. So I'm not going to read any further than that in the description. Let's see how long the first chapter of this one is. Again, the font is so big. I don't know if you can really tell that. The chapters do not have numbers, but look there's an awesome map at the beginning. That is beautiful. I love a good map. Okay, so there's a 2-page prologue. I mean, it doesn't even say prologue. There's just this little kind of introduction. And then we get into the first chapter, which is in Salzburg, Austria, 1759. Let's see how long. Okay, so this is 14 pages. So I will read that little prologue and chapter 1 and let you know what I think. I'm kind of hopeful for this one, to be honest. We'll see. All right, I finished the first chapter of The Kingdom of Back. Man, that cover is so pretty. I know I said it before. In the first chapter, we meet her family. They're all kind of sitting around. She's 8. Mozart is, Amadeus is 4. And he's kind of just getting over having a fever. And so he's in his parents' bedroom. She is sitting at the piano and her father walks in with this trumpeter, like a musician, a well-known musician. And she has to play for him. And they're all hopeful that he will recognize her greatness at 8 years old, her ear for music. She is playing away. She kind of imagines like this web being, like she gets taken away into her own little world as she's playing. But then Amadeus, little 4-year-old Amadeus, comes running out from his parents' bedroom, kind of interrupts the dad and this musician from listening. She continues to play, but makes a mistake. The guy kind of laughs at something that Amadeus says, puts him up on his lap, and she is just really frustrated by the whole thing and disappointed because she had been practicing for 6 weeks for this situation. The mom and her have a discussion later about what do they fear, which I'm like, an 8-year-old, she doesn't, it's narrated by her. And I always have a hard time when it's narrated by the older version of the child, right? Because they remember things older than an 8-year-old. So the conversations this 8-year-old was having just sounded older than an 8-year-old would. But when she goes to sleep that night, she dreams of this shore lit by twin moons, each as bright as a diamond, like this whole scene. And she said that was the first time I ever saw the kingdom of Back. So this is going to be kind of fantastical. So it's going to compare this world that we know with Amadeus Mozart, like this composer that we know, and then this other world that we don't yet know about. And so they're going to kind of interweave together, I think. I'm very intrigued. Am I more intrigued by this one than any of the others? I mean, I do love a book with music, but I didn't love the narrator's voice. Am I in the mood for a fantasy? I do still think that I'm interested in Perfect Little World more. And then this one before Song of the Crimson Flower. So here's the order so far. Perfect Little World, Kingdom of Back, Song of the Crimson Flower, and The Removed. But I have one left to go. Let's see what I think about the first chapter of Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaughey. So this I know takes place in Scotland. Inti Flynn arrives in Scotland with her twin sister Aggie to lead a team of biologists tasked with reintroducing 14 gray wolves into the remote highlands. She hopes to heal not only the dying landscape, but Aggie too, unmade by the terrible secrets that drove the sisters out of Alaska. So I don't know if we're going to start in Alaska. Okay, so the print of this one is much smaller. I mean, look at the difference between these two. Let's just get a full page of print. I mean, you can clearly see this one has way more words on the page than that one. Hopefully it has a short first chapter. Let's see. Okay, so the first chapter is just 7 pages. So I like that it does have short chapters. That's good. So let's see. Propulsive and spellbinding, Charlotte McConaughey's Once There Were Wolves is the unforgettable story of a woman desperate to save the creatures she loves if she isn't consumed by a wild that was once her refuge. Dun, dun, dun. All right, here we go. I'm going to read the first chapter and I'll let you know what I think. All right, I just finished the first chapter of Once There Were Wolves. And it starts out with a scene from when the two girls, the two twin sisters, are younger. I don't remember if it said how old they were, but their dad has taught them to live like sustainable living. Basically, they grow things in their garden to eat, and they do hunt for food, but they use every part of the animals. They no waste. And I have a feeling that's going to be a big part of it. That was a big push right at the very beginning, like the earth, that is what's best for the earth. Waste is the true enemy of the planet. And I have a feeling that that's going to come back into play, which I'm not thrilled about a book with a political agenda, not a political agenda, but an agenda that's that strong. But when they're young, in that scene, the dad is about to gut a rabbit that he just hunted or caught in a trap or something. And that is when we learn that Inti has this strange connection to the animals. At that time, we just think it's animals. We learn a little bit later that it's more than that, but she feels the cut physically on her own self. Like she thinks the dad cut her open and drops to the floor, basically passes out. And her twin sister is the one whose strength allows her to come back to reality. Move ahead to the future. They're in Scotland now, I believe, and Inti and a couple others are releasing these wolves into 1-acre size pens in the forest in Scotland. They're doing it in a way that, I don't know, is a little bit sneaky. It seems like someone said Anna's going to be really mad. So I'm not sure why Anna's going to be mad about them releasing the wolves in this way. I guess they wanted there to be news coverage and all of that. And yet the wolves were starting to wake up from their sedation. And so they pushed ahead the timeline. But we learned that Inti has mirror touch synesthesia. So her brain recreates the sensory experiences of living creatures, of all people, and even sometimes animals. If she sees it, she feels it. And for just a moment, she is them. We are one, and their pain or pleasure is my own. So for a while it felt like magic to her, but then comes with a lot of issues as well. She was watching the wolves on a screen and she could feel the one wolf kind of coming and putting his head on the other wolf and displaying his dominance, the male wolf's dominance. And she could feel the head on the back of her neck, and knew that she couldn't move because she was kind of like one and the same with the wolf. And so I just feel like that is going to come to play a lot more as the story goes on. Right at the end, she goes back to the cabin where she's staying, and her twin sister is there in bed, doesn't wake up. She crawls into bed with her sister, kind of puts her hands like in her sister's hair, and she's like, the sister is the one who was supposed to be the strong one. Thinking back to when they were kids, the sister is the one, Aggie is the one that helped Inti come back to herself and kind of move past that feeling of being connected to this rabbit that just got gutted. So yeah, I'm sure it's going to have some interesting connection between the sisters and their role that they have, like their relationship with each other, and then also Inti and the wolves and how that's going to all play out. But then we have this environmentalist issue kind of running through the whole thing as well, which is going to be a big part of it, I can tell. So I think this is probably the one I'm the least interested in continuing right now. So I'm putting it at the bottom of the stack, which means the one that I'm adding to my June TBR is the biggest of the bunch. So the one that I'm the most interested in continuing, the most intrigued by, is Perfect Little World. Even though I didn't love the relationship between the girl and her teacher, I don't ever love that. I'm just so intrigued by this idea of eliminating family units and living kind of as a communal family in a sense. So I'm just very intrigued by how that's all going to play out. I love the music that's in both of these. This one felt more like family dynamics, and this one felt more like a romance. But I am interested in both of those as well. The Removed, and these two definitely felt more literary. The Removed is going to deal with grief, and then this, like that whole environmentalist theme, and then that synesthesia aspect of it. Very cool. Such a variety, man. But yeah, so I will be adding Perfect Little World to my June TBR. I actually am going to see if I can find it on audiobook. It's a little older. It came out in 2017, so I should be able to find an audio of it. Did anybody guess this? I asked you guys to try to guess which one I would pick. Did anyone pick this one? I'm very curious. Let me know down in the comments below. I would love to chat with you. Do you like tri-chapter tags? Have you read any of those 5 books that I just read the first chapter? What did you think about them? Was I right on with my impressions after the first chapter? And also, don't forget to check out Book of the Month if you've never looked into it before. If you've never signed up, maybe now is the time. It also would make a great gift. And again, all the information about Book of the Month is down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. I really can't wait to talk with you in the comments, and I'll be talking with you in another video very soon. Bye.